Our opponent this week, the University of New Mexico, otherwise known as nothing, because unlike New Jersey, college football requires your existence to have meaning before you get a nickname. New Mexico is known on the field of play as the Lobos. A Lobo is a woman's basketball analyst, as we're all unaware, but is also a kind of wolf. If New Mexico were a wolf, it would be Scott Wolf. You kind of know who they are when they're on TV, but you don't really care what they're up to these days. In college football, there are tiers. There's an upper tier, a middle tier, a lower tier. New Mexico is from a lower tier than the ones that fall from Terrell Owens' cheeks when he runs out of ways to get attention. New Mexico's football contests look like Anderson Silva fights, and New Mexico is always the white guy. There's spelling contests, and New Mexico is always the people on my friends list. There are beauty pageants, and New Mexico is always the cross-eyed horse with tuberculosis. Special talent? Sucking at football. If Lobo football games were any more lopsided against New Mexico, they would be the real world. Speaking of, the University of New Mexico is located in New Mexico, which kind of makes sense because of the name, but kind of doesn't because that means there's a university in New Mexico. I thought New Mexico was a fictional place, like Narnia, Auburn's scandal-free successful history, or Bob Davies' worth as a college football broadcaster. New Mexico was the site of the first detonation of a nuclear weapon. The people of the state glow red, and their four-chambered eyes are covered in a silky camouflage film used to defect giant birds of prey, according to the September 9th version of the Hurtt Locker. Some people might think it would be naturally difficult to win games in a lifeless, radioactive environment, but Bob Stoops does alright. New Mexico is coached by Mike Locksley, a Ron Zook disciple. Zook, disciple. Those words go together like antifreeze connoisseur or Baylor network. Locksley has begun his career as a head coach with a 2-21 record, which means he got 2 wins out of 23, much like the Cleveland Cavaliers in the 2010 NBA playoffs. Despite being reprimanded, sued, and beaten more often than Bill O'Reilly's ferret, Locksley maintains his job because of a ridiculously high buyout in his contract. If this was Alabama, it would end in a Discovery ID episode. If this was Vanderbilt, it would end in a game of Quidditch. And if this was Mississippi, it would end in the 2011 Ole Miss Rebels. The Lobos are reluctantly led on the field by quarterback Torian Austin, who was sacked 10 times last week in a loss to Colorado State. Arkansas's defensive line will likely be so dominant Saturday, humiliating and walking all over their counterparts, that the New Mexico offensive line will receive an invitation to become the 10th member in the all-new Dr. Pepper Big Burnt Orange 10 Longhorn Network OU Sucks Conference. Here's to you, New Mexico. You are a Division 1A football team that can't be located on the field of play. You're a program that can't be located on television. And you're a state that can't be located on a map because you might be Arizona for all I know. In the game of football, you turn lemons into lemonade waterboarding. You roll over more easily than Ryan Dunn. You impact the college football landscape less than the NCAA when an elite program does something wrong. And you have less chance of winning a football game this weekend than Matt Jones. Don't go away mad, New Mexico. Just go away invisible.